this is Tony Kent, and this is another episode of Tony Kent Writes and Cross-Examines. Again, I'm going to, once again, I think I've done this almost every episode now, moan about my choice of title, because this will not be a cross-examination that anybody can recognise who's really seen one. And I have to say that because today's guest is KATE HELM, who has seen some cross-examinations during her time as a journalist. Well, Kate isn't a journalist anymore, or not that I know of. She'll tell us one way or the other. She is now a best-selling writer of fiction and non-fiction. 800,000 copies sold so far, which makes us all very jealous. Certainly makes me very jealous. And her books include the thriller, The Secrets You Hide, and coming up on the 14th of May, which for the purposes of this video is today. We're going to do that pretend it's today thing. So today, the 14th of May, the release of her newest thriller, The House Share, which Kate is going to tell us all about. Kate, thank you very much for coming.
It's lovely to be here.
When we say, for me saying when you're coming and for you saying it's lovely to be here, we are, in case anyone's under any illusions, in our own houses because we're not allowed out.
Yeah, this is very cool.
Exactly, but yeah, it's lovely to see you anyway. It's lovely to talk to you. Thanks very much for being willing to join in with this little YouTube experiment that I'm doing. And Kate, we know that today is the 14th of May, but today is the release of The House Share. Is The House Share your second fiction thriller, or?
It's my second thriller. It's
yes.
I don't know how many novel. I kind of lose track, which is not very good, really, is it?
Yeah. Well, no, I've looked you up for your fiction stuff, so for your thriller stuff. So I wasn't sure just how many of the other books you've written have been novels, but a second thriller. First of which was The Secrets You Hide. So I'll talk about that really quickly, and then we'll come on to The House Share. The Secrets You Hide. I've not read that, but now I really want to, after having looked you up, and I've actually ordered it off of Amazon already, because that's a book about a court artist who can see the evil in people. Yes,
so I had wanted to write something that related back to my previous career as a journalist for a long time, but anybody who's into writing and has got ideas might not know, but people aren't very keen on journalists as heroes or protagonists in fiction. And they think that everybody hates journalists, which may well be true. So although I've written quite a lot of fiction before, I hadn't really been able to put any of that experience into the books. Yeah. And then I listened to loads of podcasts, and I was at the gym back in the day when we could go to the gym, and I was listening.
I'm not missing that so much, I have to say.
I know, yeah. Well, what can I do? If only for the excuse to kind of get away from work. But anyway, so I was there on the cross trainer, and I was listening to a podcast about an American courtroom artist, and I thought, oh, do you know what? That is such an interesting central character for a thriller. And off the back of that, I just started thinking about my own experiences a long time ago now, working as kind of a stringer, working as an agency journalist, covering a lot of courts and inquests. Yeah. And I thought, oh, okay, what can I do with this? And so the character of Georgia came from that, and she is somebody who has a very troubled past and also has a talent for art, something I definitely don't have. And she uses her art because of her damaged past. She has a very strong conviction that most people who appear in court are guilty. And so she uses kind of very subtly the art that she does to tweak what people might feel. Yeah. And obviously those drawings then go on to TV and go into the papers, and then she comes across her first case, comes back into the news, and she sees something that makes her think she might have got that all wrong, and then so she starts to explore what that case was about and goes back into her own damaged past as well. There's a lot going on.
Yeah, it sounds fascinating. As I say, I read the summary of it when I was doing some research for this little chat, and yeah, I immediately went to Amazon and I've ordered it. I'm hoping I'll have it in the next couple of days if they're not too busy delivering face masks. When did that come out? When was The Secrets You Hide released?
That was early last year, so that's 2019.
Right, and now today, the 14th of May, as we keep reiterating, is your second, The House Share. Now, I've read what this is about. Again, this sounds fascinating. I think your stuff is actually quite high concept, really, and very up to date, isn't it, with the stuff you write? Tell us a bit about the house.
I get loads of my inspiration from the zeitgeist. So the first novel I ever wrote was about, which was not a thriller at all, was about Friends Reunited. So I tend to kind of look at things and, like I say, listen to podcasts and get my inspiration from there. And this was an article about co-sharing living, which is the fancy way of living now. And this is where you are in a really nice property that has tiny, teeny little bedrooms, but you have great shared areas.
Yeah.
So you might have an honesty gin bar, or you might have a roof terrace. So they're often in cities.
Yeah.
And I thought that would have been fantastic when I was sharing a house, rather than the kind of grotty, dingy places I used to stay, you know, to be in this fantastic environment, probably a better property than you could afford at all if you were trying to buy or rent on your own. But of course, the downside to that is you're bringing a bunch of strangers together and the expectations are almost higher. So what if you found yourself able to go and live in one of those amazing co-sharing environments, but gradually things started to go wrong? And because it's a thriller, everything starts to go wrong, to the extent that you end up with, well, my kind of concept line off the back, check I've got it right, is when you're sharing a house with 7 murder suspects, you can't lock the danger out.
Yeah. It's a great line. It's a great hook.
This was all thought of way before we were in this situation, because as everyone knows, you know, we write a book and then it doesn't come out for a good 9 months.
Well, timing wise, you couldn't be better, could you really? I mean, it's we're all locked in, and in fairness, most of us probably not with strangers, but
hopefully locked in with other murder suspects. So it's kind of, I like to think of it as the kind of, you know, you might like the honesty gin bar and the emotional support animals, but you really wouldn't like the people that are in this house. So we don't really know what's going on. There's lots of possibilities. There are terrible pranks being carried out, and it all gets a lot more dangerous.
Yeah. Well, I read the synopsis, which is a great synopsis. Very much, not quite as much detail as you just gave, but you know, very much in line with that. And I thought it sounds kind of, you just not to try to be a bookseller, but it's like This Life meets The Hitcher or something. You know, it's got the sort of
that kind of thing. Yeah, I mean, I love This Life. I was totally addicted to that. And these are the kind of millennial equivalent of those quite glamorous but quite flawed individuals. And can I tell you what the most fun thing was about this, actually, was that we created our own. I had to draw it, but we made one for the book. Look, the actual thing is called the Dye Factory.
Okay.
A little bit of a pun going on. It's in Bermondsey, where me and my partner lived there for a short period of time. Yeah. Very funky, very trendy part of London.
Bermondsey is very, I used to go to a boxing club in Bermondsey, and
oh wow,
it's you know, so what I was doing there was not trendy at all. It was, you know, under the arches and just and sweating. But when we used to come out, I'd be wondering. I'm a very untrendy person, and I felt very out of place on my way back, because it's ultra trendy, isn't it, Bermondsey? It really is.
Yeah, and so it's exactly the kind of place you would find one of these co-sharing places. And of course, they've got this, the reason it's called the Dye Factory, they've got this real connection to the old textile industry, where they used to do a lot of tanning and hide. And I did a lot of research just on the side about those buildings, and it was a really stinking, horrible place. But those warehouses are now perfect places for co-living. And so
and it is, again, it's the kind of place you could only really live in those circumstances, isn't it? Because God knows what the buildings must cost. Southwark Crown Court is in Bermondsey, right? And it's this massive, sprawling complex. You've probably been to Southwark, actually, as a journalist. It's a big, sprawling complex just by HMS Belfast, right? And I know that they're running it down quite blatantly at the moment, not repairing and not doing anything work on it, intending to sell it, because you can just imagine what must the real estate around there be worth. So I guess if you are young and you want to be in that part of town, you are going to live in these kinds of setups. Yes, exactly. And this one in particular, the rent is based around your own salary. So it means that my central character, who is a primary school teacher, gets to live there as well on a low rent. So again, lots of question marks. Would you live in a place like that? Because there's obviously some ulterior motive going on, but you know.
then you see the rooftop terrace, and you've got, free yoga sessions, free kimchi, the whole lot, everything you could want.
It's all very trendy. It sounds fantastic
as well, to be fair.
It sounds fantastic. So that's obviously that's available as of today, the 14th of May. Or if this goes out earlier somehow in some sort of temporal vortex, then it can be pre-ordered as well. Is it out in hardback or is it out in paperback?
It's paperback and ebook, and the audiobook, unfortunately, has been slightly held up by COVID.
Yeah, I've been through that.
People have. Yeah, but hopefully that'll be there soon, because I saw the actors that they've got for it, and I think they sounded brilliant. So I can't wait to hear it, because you've got
actors.
Yeah.
You are privileged.
Character, a man and a woman. So I'm very excited by that.
I normally just get a guy doing a high-pitched voice when he gets the lady parts. So, funnily enough, in my books, the main lady protagonist in my book is a journalist. So there is at least one person writing about and one of the two main male protagonists is a lawyer. So I've really gone full out in terms of finding unpopular professions to have as the heroes.
As well, don't you?
The first book has one, but we kill him. So.
Oh, well, that's good. That works.
That is good. So you were a journalist before you were writing, but you're obviously writing thrillers. We know you've been writing other fiction. You also wrote, did you not, the screenplay for Angel of Death?
About Beverly Allitt,
yes,
who ended up being convicted of killing a number of babies and trying to kill quite a few others. So that was when I used to work in BBC documentaries. That was one of my jobs as a journalist, and we made a drama doc. And because I had writing experience, I wrote the screenplay, which was really interesting, especially where it's something real life, I think, because obviously there's still a great deal of doubt, anyone who's looked into that case, on what motivated Beverly Allitt. No one's really clear on what was going on there. There was, some talk of kind of wanting to draw attention to herself, but nobody really knows. And so it was quite an interesting exercise to bring to life a real life character, and also a highly sensitive case. Of course, so many people were devastated by what happened there. It gave me a taste for it, but I have to say that I like novel writing and book writing generally, because, well, you've got complete control.
It's a very different thing.
As soon as you're doing screenwriting or anything like that, everyone wants to get involved.
It's like people talk about the editing process with books and how do you allow somebody to come and change your book, but the amount to which they come and change your book, it bears no relation to what happens with a script.
Exactly. And I think that's the thing, that you are still I was going to say this awful word, auteur, but you are effectively the director of your own book.
Yes.
And so although editors and copy editors and everyone want to help you make the book better, and that's something that I think as a newer writer it's hard to get
it remains your vision.
But it remains your vision, and they won't make you make changes that you don't want to make. What they will do is flag up issues that aren't working, and then they might make a suggestion, but it's still up to you to how you resolve it, which is brilliant. I love publishing for that.
Well, it's interesting. It's what a lot of I've come across quite a few authors don't really seem to understand that ultimately, if they do dig their heels in, then they'll win. But in order to be able to dig their heels in, they've got to be absolutely sure they're right.
Yes.
I mean, it's a big call.
You've been living with it for such a long time. You don't ever know you're right. No book is ever finished, I don't think.
I agree with that, absolutely. I picked up my first book the other day and read through it and thought, I'd change that line on the first page.
Yeah, me too. I do it all the time.
Okay, look, we've only got 15 minutes, and believe it or not, 14 minutes, 20 seconds have already gone.
Wow.
So I don't want to rush into a goodbye, because I keep doing that to everybody. So what I want to do is, again, ask you to hold up your book, The House Share. Encourage everybody to get onto Amazon today, or down to Tesco's and Asda, I imagine, probably in there as well.
Yeah.
And get your copy, because as we say, it sounds absolutely fantastic. This life meets the hitcher, I'm going to say, because I very rarely get to say things like that.
Thanks.
Also, The Secrets You Hide and everything else by Kate Helm. Sell some more copies. Thank you very much for joining us, and I'm going to let you go.
Thanks, Kevin. Cheers.
Bye.
Bye.